I'm Susan Howard. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, of course, and I'm one of the members of the Delegate Council Steering Committee. And we've got Richard, Barbara, Val, Karen, and Janice. Welcome to everybody. And what were you saying, Richard? You were talking about Pennsylvania records?
Val and I were discussing, peculiar issues related to Pennsylvania, and its first of all, its history of county formation and how records for one area tend to be shared among 5 or 6 different courthouses. That's usually a different problem from out west, where the counties were sort of, born and still have their, well, I'll take that back. Colorado has had a long history of county border changes. But the other issue is that there is very little direction from the state level about where records should go. For example, some of them go to the National or the State Archives, some of them don't. Some of them are disposed of, some of them are microfilmed, some aren't, and so on. And for us, because the distances to travel for many of our members, half our members are out of state. They have a hard time coming here to access records locally. And so the issue is to make it possible for them to access records
remotely,
online, or in some other fashion, without requiring a huge amount of volunteer or paid effort locally, because we don't have that many people to go around.
Where is Centre County?
Centre County is in the center of the state.
Okay, that's why it's called Centre County, huh?
State College, Penn State University, and so on. And we're described as equally inconvenient to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Okay, because I'm familiar with Lackawanna County and around there. I had ancestors in Lackawanna County, and I know I've been on their county website for years. I haven't been on there lately, but their access to their county records was just so awful. It was awful, difficult. It was difficult to the tool they were using was awful. It was just very difficult to find the records.
Yeah, the contrast between, say, Chester County, which has a wonderful website with lots and lots of indexes, and a wonderful building with their archives to go and visit, with, say, Centre County, or maybe worse, Huntington County, where the Historical Society there is open for 2 or 3 months in the summer, and you pay for admission. And the courthouse is not terribly friendly to work in. Is huge, and of course Chester County has a much bigger population and a big head start on colonial records. And so there are reasons that there are differences, but the problem for Centre County and the counties it was formed from and the counties that spun off from it, or townships that spun off, is that our records are in various places, easier to get at, but often just unknown.
Right.
We have a basement full of tax lists, which are a wonderful resource. But
who can access them?
Well, you can access them in person if you happen to be in Bellefonte.
On the right day and time, with places open.
Or you can hire somebody, but finding a paid researcher locally is difficult, because many of the people who used to do it have given up that job, or have said that, well, the problems people come to us with now are too difficult for me to solve.
And it's not. They don't want to pay their time.
And of course, everybody is looking to save a penny here and there, and so online is the way to go if you can. But the issues of what rights we have to digitize and put online is a big one. And of course, you can get around that by transcribing, extracting, but that takes a lot of volunteer time.
It does, and then you don't get the original records. Is everybody here, or is anybody here familiar with Reclaim the Records and their sagas?
I'm on the board.
Are you? Good, Barbara. Yeah, I'm one of their biggest. Well, I'm not one of their biggest supporters money wise, but I am one of their biggest supporters, and I do contribute every once in a while. But if you haven't read this story on how they got Missouri records, it's worth a read. Worth a read. And Barbara, you could probably tell us a little bit about it. But
it was frightening to read the information that the Department of Public Health had to supply. It included emails in which the frontline worker was told not to obey the law.
Yes.
that they would try to change the law, and then they weren't able to change the law that year, so she was told not to obey the law for the following year. So that's why they got fined the maximum.
Well,
It's
wasn't
right
it,
there in black
at one point they wanted, what they say it was gonna cost, they wanted $5 million to supply the records and then
$1.4 million.
$4 million, yeah.
One at a time, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they're telling that they have to access the database one at a time, and on the board, we have 3 major technologists from Family Search and Brooker Shelf, and
Mhm.
everybody's going,
That's not true, yes.
it's so not true, yeah.
But that whole, and that story's still going on. I mean, I know you've won your court cases, but the ramifications are still occurring in Missouri.
Yeah, we haven't gotten all the records yet, and
Yeah,
they don't want to pay the lawyer fees.
yeah.
But they knew going into it, they'd have to pay the lawyer fees if they lost.
Mhm.
And they knew going into it, they were breaking the law. They knew that, so.
The funny thing about Missouri is you've got so many amazing records that are online, for example, penitentiary records.
Exactly. I know.
And so why, and it's
I-
just got a matter of what's a cash cow and what isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, why would a name and a death date and location be such a big issue? But yeah,
I know I work with the archives and indexing every year. So yeah, I don't get it. And we're just having some more weather notifications here. So hopefully I stay on. I hear thunder outside and I'm getting all kinds of stuff coming across my phone.
oh, they say,
This,
they say.
this- anyway,
So do all your states have liaisons to the Records Preservation and Access Coalition? Because they have a statewide liaison thing set up.
Great, yeah, ours does. I know him, but he's not affiliated with GSP. I mean, he's a member, but he's Jim Beidler. And
Oh, I know
yeah,
Jim.
I know
from Big-
Jim. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
Jim.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Don't
I-
know on mine. I assume they do. Florida, I'm sure is that we do have a active state society.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm
Thank-
not as familiar with that organization, but I need to become. But like I said, I am familiar with Reclaim the Records.
Yeah. I don't know if I can share on this venue, but I can show you that list.
A list of what? Of
The state
Advocates?
representatives to RPAC. Now, these people don't have to attend
Oh, good.
meetings. But if, for example, there's some issue that comes up in their state, they can go to the regular monthly meetings and ask for help.
Oh,
And
good.
then RPAC will get everybody behind it. But
Look
You
at all
hear-
those vacancies.
look at all those vacancies, yeah. So, I'm from New England and Rhode Island is vacant.
Hmm.
And we've talked to Rhode Island and they're not interested.
Hmm.
But I will say one thing. So the District of Columbia is vacant. It's been vacant for a lot. And 2 years ago, they got a new, suddenly very restrictive vital records access law. And they didn't even know it was happening.
Wow.
It just went through. Nobody protested it. Nobody talked about it.
It was done under the table,
Yeah, but
under the
it's
radar.
yeah, it's not always, fighting laws like that, bills like that, although we did that in Massachusetts last year too. But sometimes it's just, trying to submit a new bill that might open the indexes or open the death records, 10 years earlier or something. They did that in Georgia this year. They made some progress. But that was the RPAC liaison in Georgia who tried to do that. And she got far and she had support from other people.
Huh.
So,
Janice, where are you located? You're muted. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm in Chicago.
Okay, Illinois. Yeah, that's another one. Illinois have problems with their records too, huh?
I was surprised about Missouri.
I was too,
Because
like I say, I've worked with, I've worked with the archives for years, and when all this trouble started happening, I was very shocked, but I'm glad they lost. So we've got RPAC, and we've got NGS tied to RPAC, kind of, not really, but we got Reclaim the Records. Are there other organizations that people know about for accessing records?
Well, within a couple states, there's
Yeah.
statewide umbrella organizations that
are
monitor it. So it's true in Massachusetts, and it's true in Michigan. And I know that Texas statewide has Terry Flack chairing a committee that monitors that. She's terrific. But I don't
Okay.
know how many states have that, because you really have to keep an eye on your state legislation.
And as we know, they oftentimes just, the people voting don't know what they're doing, and they're just listening to people and lobbyists
Yeah, yeah.
for whoever has the loudest voice and the most money, huh?
Well, in Pennsylvania, this issue comes up in terms of deed records in particular, because of course, deeds are of interest to the title search companies
And that's how they make their living.
Right. And so they have, many of the smaller counties in Pennsylvania, the rural counties in particular, have teamed up with a couple of companies which I guess have said, we'll scan your records, digitize them, make them available online, et cetera, but we want to charge a fee for the service on the other end. Of course, counties which are always eager not to raise taxes to provide services are quick to jump at this. But the particular agency I'm thinking of, I don't recall its name offhand, I've got a brochure, deals with maybe 10 or 15 different counties in New York and Pennsylvania. They want to charge not only per view or per PDF page, but also for the time you spend online. And so the advice people have been receiving in Clearfield County, for example, is come to us for the indexes, find out what pages you need before you go to their website to actually
Start browsing.
But you
Yeah.
cannot access them locally anymore.
Ah.
And Center County, all the deed books have been put into storage because they've been digitized. But at least they are available to anybody for clicks. You can create your account with the Center County Webia, W-E-B-I-A, which I guess means Web Info Access or something. And it's not that expensive. It's maybe 10 or 12 cents a click, depending on how many you buy at a time, to navigate through, find any deed, find any probate file, find quarter session docket books or indexes, whatever. And so we did not have any role to play in that as a genealogical society, but we fortunately had somebody who was forward-looking enough to realize that people want to have access to these documents. They don't want to have to go through an intermediary that charges an arm and a leg for it. And that's great. Now, if we could only get that same same benefit conferred on our tax lists and demerit dockets and the other things of that sort, because we still have paper access only for a very large number of types of county records.
I suppose, yeah, paying for those clicks is a lot cheaper if you're in California than a trip.
Well, exactly, or even just a couple gallons of gasoline to drive to Belfast.
Well, at this point where you can't get gasoline in the East,
or the library's closed, or the
exactly. Or if you want to stay at home and do it in your pajamas,
So that I think that was a great innovation. I just wish it were a little more broadly implemented. Our own local initiative on records is actually newspapers. We have been funneling money toward the Pennsylvania State University Library digitization department, which has sponsors a free website called panewsarchive.org, I think it is.
Yeah.
And we paid them they have a lot of things on microfilm, some of which they own the microfilm because they paid to have that process done from their own paper collections years ago. But in any case, they are now happy to help digitize them. And we now have a very long run of the major newspaper of record from the county seat in Center County, the Democratic Watchman. And we're working on some more. And of course, these days, the digitizing and OCR to make it searchable are much better than they were 10, 15 years ago.
Mhm.
So that's where we have chosen to put a significant amount of our own financial resources in the last 2 or 3 years.
So basically, it sounds like, and from my experience and from what I'm hearing from you all, that it boils down to money, of course, whoever has the money.
Right? Or
So
whoever needs to make money.
whoever needs to make money, right?
Get the word.
Uh-huh.
So
So,
on the national level, talking about money, you remember that Records Not Revenue with Rich Venezia and a whole group of people organized our response to the United States Custom and Immigration Service fee increases that went up
oh
like
yeah,
100 or 600%.
hmm
They've taken a step back and they've looked at the issue with USCIS, and it seems that a lot of their records are no longer actual current business records. They're historic genealogical records, and they should be transferred to the National Archives.
So that puts them in a different category. Yeah.
Yeah, except that USCIS never indexed them. And so they looked at the National Archives budget and they saw that it had actually been totally flat for 8 years. It had a little blip up to pay for one presidential library, another little blip up to pay for another, but it's been flat at like 7 million for all that time.
Mhm.
And so they're trying to get us organized. Their next organization will be for us to ask that its budget be increased 15%.
So that they can do this work.
So that they can bring in the records they need to bring in and they can increase their digitization services. And within NAR is a place called the National Historic Records Publication Committee or something. And that group controls a huge budget and it goes out to all the states for the states to spend on preservation and to spend on an official roving archivist within each state to help local libraries and towns and counties figure out what they need to do. And that also has been threatened with being pushed to zero for a few years now. And they're going to hope that increasing NARA will increase that group, which goes out to the SHRAB groups in the local states. So we've got more preservation locally and support for it, which would be terrific. But that's local support that we can do based on NARA's budget if it gets increased.
I have 2 questions to follow up. First one is, I read somewhere, and it may be correct or not, that NARA was actually refusing to ingest records from USCIS because they were not indexed.
I think that could be the case.
Because they don't have the staff to organize.
Resources, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they need an increased budget and increased staff. Absolutely.
So that means that neither side has the budget to do anything about it. The problem's not going to go away until that's solved.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah.
The second question is there's a new organization, I think, called Association of Research Archivists or Archival Research Association or something. Is that an affiliate of NGS? Do we know?
Good question. If it's not, we should suggest they be recruited, huh?
And they
What was
are.
it? What was the name of that organization?
Well, ARA, the abbreviation, I think it's Archival Researchers Association or something. And these are basically professionals who make their living by going to the National Archives and doing research for people, paid research, retrieving records and so on. And they've, of course, been locked out for the past 1.5 years and are working to get back in. But they could probably use some support from PRAC and vice versa in terms of their knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah, this must be it.
Yeah, I got it.
Hmm.
I was able to attend one of their meetings couple of weeks back, and it was basically the folks talking about what's going on in St. Louis at the Personnel Records Center. They're tearing out the research room and devoting all of their staff time, which is still 25% level, to fulfilling DD 214 requests for,
Hmm.
veterans who need their benefits and need that documentation of separation of service. And so
If it
there's
exists.
and there's absolutely no opportunity for researchers like you and me or them to go in and do anything.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nor
and
will
they're
there be for
estimated,
the foreseeable future.
they're estimated to be closed for at least 12 to 14 months.
Yeah, and when they open, it will not be the same place. And likewise, they are now, I think, allowing 4 researchers at a time into the research room and on the second floor of NARA 1 in DC for a couple of hours at a time, by appointment. And at the moment, the only people who are doing this sort of pilot project about can they reopen are members of ARA.
Hmm.
A big issue there is that the ventilation system in that building apparently would require $100 million renovation to
That's
get
not
it.
going to happen.
It ain't going to happen anytime soon. And so the idea that you can waltz in and look for a homestead record or a Civil War pension file, forget about doing that in person. Take your place at the back of the line.
So things are going to continue to be more difficult and get more difficult.
That's the message I hear.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, it's not good news.
And so we need a lot more than just a few dozen members of ARA to be lobbying. They have been doing a job of visiting Congress people, explaining the issue that this is a small business threat to them. But we need to put the effort behind this. These are public records and we need access to them.
Absolutely. I have 2 Civil War pensions I want so badly.
And when do you
I've
think
been
you'll get
waiting
there?
I've been checking the website every few months because I want to get my uncle's World War II records from the Navy, which they exist. They're from the Navy. Those weren't burned. But unfortunately, when I went to look, it was after the shutdown, and who knows when I'll ever get them. He's gone, so I can't ask them. So I was trying to do some more information about him and hoping to, like write something for the family and about he was in the Navy, a communications signalman, but he served primarily aboard merchant marine ships. And so I'm trying to get more background on that, and it's just like dead stop.
And I was
So
able to
you-
find my second great grandfather was in the British Navy, and I was able to find his records online. So there you go.
The Veterans Administration has some records that, again, have not been transferred to NARA yet. But I don't know whether you're going to have any more luck with them.
Like one black hole to another. Well, it sounds like, this is not one of my pet subjects, but I do like I say, I have worked with Reclaim the Records to support them, but I could see where I could be a full-time advocate for records, that's for sure. And it looks like New Mexico is vacant, and I live about 10 minutes from the archives, so I'm not even sure if they're open back up yet, but I'm going to check into it when they do.
Well, of course, there was the huge
Yeah.
issue about the Seattle Regional Center of the Archives, which was going to be sold off, and the records moved to Southern California or Kansas. or
What?
something.
What?
Yeah,
An underground bunker?
well, some
Yeah.
committee in Washington in charge of selling off federal land decided this land was downtown Seattle and
Oh my
valuable, and so
gosh.
they should just close that facility down. They took no public input, made their decisions behind closed doors in disregard of administrative law, And the judge said, you can't do that. And so they backed down. But that was a near miss. But it just illustrates that the problem of access to the National Archives is a national issue, which the National Genealogical Society really needs to put some
Tackle.
behind.
Well, I have to say the National Genealogy Society was very active in response to that.
Right.
You know, two
Mhm.
people from the RPAC coalition went to the online meetings from the state attorney general and advocated strongly, and RPAC itself sent the Biden team a transition paper
Mhm.
asking them to implement a policy where stakeholders could discuss building closures like that. And Biden has made that statement. And all the federally recognized tribes in the area were up in arms as well. So NGS was part of the response to
That's
that.
good. We need to keep it up, not just reacting to a crisis, but
We need to have people paying attention, and a lot of genealogists don't realize that they're responsible for ensuring they have access to records. They're responsible for ensuring those records are preserved. You know, most people go blithely through life thinking Family Search took care of it all. And
Oh, yeah,
Ancestry-
and everything's on Ancestry. Yeah, exactly.
But I would remind you that the Cook County vital records were withdrawn from Family Search when Cook County decided they wanted to sell the originals, not just share them.
Oh, wow. Is there any state that anybody knows of that is doing a good job in records preservation?
Well, you know, some of them are trying. You know, in
Yeah.
Connecticut, there was a law that $3 from every deed went to a records preservation fund. Part of
That's a
which
good
was
idea.
the local recorder's office, and part of which was given out as grants by the state. And it was based on a preceding law from New York State that had a $7 charge. So it is possible to get these things enacted to fund some of that stuff. But
You just have
actually
You have to
work
speak
it.
up. You have
You
to
have
work
to-
with your
yeah.
legislature, and you have to speak up and yeah.
You have to be ready to articulate it
Mhm.
and spend some time talking to people and selling them on the idea. Yeah.
Well, and convincing people that everything doesn't need to be locked up for 120 years after people die.
You know, two people who were on the RPAC board, Alec Ferretti and Alex Kazaroff, they did a deep dive into the Federal Trade Commission statistics on consumer identity theft, and they graphed it. So if closing records protected consumer identity, then the line would have a very steep slope down.
Yes. And it
From
doesn't.
open records, lots of theft, closed records, no theft.
Little.
And instead, the line was almost flat. It goes up a little more if the records are closed.
Yeah.
Because you can't do checks on whether people are
Checks
dead.
and balances. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's actually just the opposite. Closing records seems to promote it. When the truth isn't out there, then the fake can
Well,
be out there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
the people who have their alternate truth or alternate facts that they would like you to hear are the companies that
Make money.
make money by providing this service to the counties that can't afford to hire more staff. Vital Check has got a lock on birth and death records for an awful lot of counties out there.
Mm.
It's amazing.
Probably on the outfit. And again, it's the pressure that people don't want their taxes raised. And so inflation eats away at the available staff. Statutes that allow a recorder to charge no more than 50 cents per page for a document mean that he can't make up the difference on his budget by charging more for access. And so either he provides no service or he has to get in league with one of the private vendors who don't have that limitation. In Center County, PA, I can't speak for other Pennsylvania counties, the line offices like the recorder, the clerk of court, register of wills, have to basically provide their own budget. They have to fund themselves.
Wow.
The commissioners don't do it for them. And
That's
so,
true. Yeah, that's true in a lot of states. Vital records offices are self-funded.
So that tells you it's not important.
That tells you that they're selling all your data to the Centers
Yeah.
for Disease Control and the Social Security Administration. But
Mhm.
also the 50 state vital records registrars, the 5 American territories registrars, and the registrars for Washington, D.C. and New York City have their own organization. And now they're selling the data to their organization to try to get that organization to sell data to the federal government so that they can make more money.
Oh, gee.
Their option, in Massachusetts, the budget says that the Vital Statistics Office can withhold the first $700,000 of their income. That's,
Which is all of
and
it.
anything over that, but they never make it to that cutoff.
I really wish that, I know in Montgomery County, I haven't been up there for a little while, but the last time I visited, they were telling me that they have an automatic agreement to transfer archival materials from the courthouse to the Historical Society. I believe Bucks County has something like that too, from when I was up there. But I know in Philadelphia, I mean, not to, insult anyone, but I know that has been an ongoing issue. I mean, they provide great access, but it's like, short-staffed, underfunded. And I
Mhm.
almost wish that there was some way, and I'm sure we've all thought of that or talked about it, that there was some sort of cutoff by which it's like, this is archival, it has to go to the state archives, or it has to go to, something like that.
In 1981, we passed a law in Massachusetts that took the older vital records and in 5-year chunks transferred them to the state archives,
Okay.
so that the state vital records office never has more than 75 years of anything.
Oh, that's great.
And it gets indexed, it gets transferred over. And I think everyone now has access to all the archival stuff on Family Search and Ancestry too, but yeah.
Has,
I think
has anybody else heard of, I know this has been a few years ago, but I was at a flea market or antique store somewhere in Kentucky.
Mhm.
And they had, original record books from the 1800s for sale at a flea market. You ran into that? Yeah.
I've seen that on eBay sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've pointed it out to
exactly.
people.
Exactly. And I mean, I tried to contact, I can't remember which county it was, but I tried to contact the county and they said they had turned them over to the state archives, years ago because they didn't have storage for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point they got, out, but somebody probably sold them or gave them to an antique store or Goodwill or who knows what.
Well, we've done dumpster diving for church records. I don't think we've
Yeah.
done it for county records yet.
But there's all kinds of problems, aren't there? Just besides money. But I think a lot of it's like both education. Yeah, we need advocacy and advocacy and education. So
Well, the more members we have who actually understand the value of the records, the more likely
Mhm.
there is to have some pressure on the powers that
Well,
be.
you guys understand a lot more than I do. And I mean, I understand the general problem, but you've opened my eyes, that's for sure. Thank you.
It was great talking to you, and the more we can get this out to other genealogists to just take some responsibility.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know at what point let's see what point we're supposed to go back to the other session. I thought it was 10
It's
after.
Counting down